Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello. Today's lecture we will deal with development administration to sustainable development. So we have been seeing about the concepts of development administration, the importance, the scope, the nature of development administration, the various theories of development administration. Where are we heading to? We are heading towards what is called as the sustainable development. So today's topic is on development administration to sustainable development. We will be focusing on the Millennium Development Goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, what happened to the Millennium Development Goals that led to the formation of the Sustainable Development Goals, and what are the targets, how it promotes the sustainable development. Sustainable development is very important for the developing of the country. The development relies, again I reiterate, saying that for the socio-economic progress and the nation building. So development administration to sustainable development. We have actually transformed towards the demands that are being sought according to the situations. So development is also getting upgraded day by day. The choice is completely on the citizens. The term sustainable implies the exact results that development administration has been aiming since its inception. What is this sustainable development? We sustain for the future. We keep the resources for the future generation, plus we retain some for us too. So if we have to preserve for the future generation, there is a lot more to be done for that sustainability. So the governments all over the world are very much focused on the sustainable development, because failure of that can lead to a failure in the development of a nation as well. Millennium Development Goals. These Millennium Development Goals were actually fixed so that all the nations in our country fulfill the goals, fulfill the vision. We cannot have every nation having their very own vision or very own goals. No, the goals have to be similar. It has to be similar. Only then every nation can work towards it. But then Millennium Development Goals, though they had certain goals, yet they were a failure. The reason because of poverty. Poverty existed so much that the government was not able to thwart that poverty, could not remove poverty because of various reasons such as population explosion, other reasons such as unemployment. These are not just with the developing economies. The system was also happening at the least developing countries too. So poverty could not be eradicated. Secondly, maternal mortality. There were many women who died because of maternal problems. So good healthcare facilities could not be provided. So the goals just focused on the development aspect, but they failed to provide inputs for the maternal mortality or poverty. We focus on certain other sections, but then these are also the areas which we need to focus upon. Third is a focus on inputs. Yes, we have the right to education. The right to education is a provision which has been given to all the children. Every child has to be educated. But what if there are no proper teachers? What if there are no proper infrastructural facility? So ultimately that particular right to education is actually a failure. So the inputs are there, but there is no focus towards those inputs. So that is a third point where the Millennium Development Goal was a failure. Fourth, global emissions. We focus on the carbon emissions today that can create a havoc in the environment. Every day the ozone depletion happens because of the emissions that are prevalent, but there was no solution for it. Carbon emissions had to be stopped. The glaciers today have the deposits of the carbon, so we do not enjoy the particular feel of the glacier in various countries or various states. So carbon emission, the protection of the environment became a very, very poor, very mismanaged. It was actually mismanaged, I can say, where that was actually out of focus. Then it was developing a global partnership for development. Global partnership means we need to have a collaboration of various nations. Every country has to have a collaboration with other nations for the development, but then that did not happen. Because of the various political systems that existed in the country, every ideology, various social economic practices, so all those existed. So these factors actually resulted in the failure of Millennium Development Goals. So the United Nations actually started to wonder how to reach out these goals to various other nations for them to progress, for them to develop. So that is how sustainability that has to be brought in. Sustenance of the country, sustenance of the economy was very important, and that is how they shifted towards the growth of the Sustainable Development Goals. What are the prerequisites for sustainable development? Why do we require sustainable development? First, we need to revive the growth. We were somewhere behind. The economic progress was very poor. Say for a country, the economic progress is very poor. Say for the country like Africa, where food, the basic need is also not available. They are far away from us. So in that case, you have to revive the growth system. How can you revive the growth? The people policies should have to be framed in a proper manner. The social security policy is very, very poor. So security policies have to be provided, and so to revive the growth, the policies, the programs and plans will have to be changed over the period of time. Second one is changing the quality of growth. We should always see a progress. There should not be a deterioration, or there should not be a reduction in the growth. A growth can happen. When there is a growth, the economy progresses. So there should be a change in the quality of growth. It can be in the field of industries, it can be in the field of technology, it can be in the field of education. All these are interrelated concepts. As we rightly understood, between the modernity and the development, they too are interrelated concepts. So the change also should happen in the quality of growth. It should not be stagnant at one point of time. The growth should be very transparent and should be in the upgraded nature. Third one is meeting the essential needs. It is mandatory for the government to meet the essential needs of the people. What do I mean by the essential needs? It is a food, it is a medical care, the health facility. So these are the essential needs for the people. Transportation. There are many remote areas where transportation is very, very poor. People will have to travel 15 to 20 kilometers to go and study in a school. The children will have to travel so far. People will have to travel to the hospitals 15 to 20 kilometers, or sometimes it goes to 50 kilometers for them to reach out to the hospitals. So essential services should also be focused. So for that, technology intervention is very important. More of transport, more of infrastructural facilities have to be provided. Good roads. good road system, good railway systems, all has to be provided for the welfare of the people and for the growth of the nation. 4. Ensuring sustainable level of population. So there is always a growth in the population also. So when there is a growth in the population, we have to see to that how the employment opportunities can also be given to them. We have the public-private partnerships. We have many private sectors which are offering jobs for people. But then today the youth is into creating the jobs for themselves. They are into more of startup companies. Many of them are interested to become entrepreneurs. So the government has understood that, and then they go for the Atmanirbhar process where they make them self-reliant. So you have the startup firms. The women have started with the self-help groups. So naturally the income starts flowing for them. The creativity starts there. Innovation starts there. So innovative, creativity, so all these together can absolutely ensure sustainability with the helping hand of technology. So ensuring sustainable level of the population, because the population is required for human manpower for our country. So based on their development, the country's income also increases. Conserving and enhancing the resource base. We need to conserve the resource base. What is the resource base here? The human manpower, the financial capital resources, the environmental resources. So that is why we have the scheme of Swachh Bharat, where the places will have to be very clean. But do the people actually keep the places clean? Government can reach out to the people, government can bring out an awareness to the people, saying the people, you have to keep your surroundings clean. But whose responsibility is it? It is the responsibility of the people. That is where your civic sense matters. You have to keep your surrounding clean, you have to keep your houses clean. So conserve. By doing all this, you can protect your environment. You can conserve the environment to a greater level. You enhance the resource base. So by this, what happens? The capital also increases. The tourism increases. Our country can become a good tourist spot. We can set an example for various aspects. Today we have the development index, the health index. So all these phases, development also relates to the health facilities. If you are healthy, if you are educated, if you have all the needs, there starts your development. But of course, we cannot have a fully developed country. So we need to conserve and enhance the resource base. The sixth one is reorienting the technology and managing the risks. Technology has got two phases, its advantages as well as disadvantages. How is it advantageous? Where everything comes to your hand. You don't have to run around. You have everything at your doorstep. You go for online shopping. You don't have to step out of your house for shopping. Everything comes to your house through online services. You have Flipkart today. You have Amazon today. And so many online, Meesho. So many online shopping services are available. So technology gives you that. You don't have to go to the banks to get your services done. Sometimes the services are offered by the banks right at your doorstep. Post offices are there. Post offices help you to create or implement the schemes. They help you to identify the schemes and implement your and invest your resources there. So technology takes a good amount of benefits there. What is the disadvantage of technology? The health. It affects the health at large. People are not willing to go or move out. Mobility decreases. So it is actually, we are into this agraria system. So industria system is a system where the mobility should be happening. But here, because of the technological revolution, there is spatial mobility decreases today. So this is an advantage, disadvantage in the industrial system also when the technology has an upper hand over it. So there should be a reorienting of the technology and managing the risks. Risks today can happen in various kinds of investments, various kind of financial aspects also, technical aspects also. You have hackers who actually tap the information, your privacy, they can harm your privacy also. So security risks are always there. So we need to reorient the technology. Today is a present situation is where we have the Bitcoin system. The Bitcoin, the blockchain technology is happening today. At the same time, there are also drawbacks for the blockchain technology, which we will come to know soon. Seventh one is merging environment and economics in decision making. Environment here does not mean the surrounding system. Environment here means the agencies that are affecting internally and externally. So internal agencies can be your government, the rules, regulations that are being framed by the Reserve Bank of India. Reserve Bank of India can affect the economy of the country. So the Reserve Bank of India provides the policies, the rules to various other banks, based on which the investments of the people also happen. So merging that particular environment, that is the internal one. External is where the agencies, the international agencies, so the World Bank can have a major role, International Monetary Fund can have a major role where the government can borrow from those agencies. So merging the environment and economics is very important in decision making. A small or a slight difference in that kind of a decision making can affect the progress of the country. So these are the prerequisites for sustainable development. So with these prerequisites, what can be the principles of sustainable development? Sustainable development is a holistic approach. Holistic approach, it is for social, economical, cultural and political system. So social, economic, cultural and political system. So for all these four systems, we require the sustainable development. So that is a holistic approach where it has to reach out to these in these contexts. So that is the holistic approach. Intragenerational and intergenerational solidarity. Intragenerational is where within the system, those gone are the days where we had the joint family. That is a very good example. Today we follow the system of nuclear family. So that intragenerational, between when there is a joint family, the principles and values of the elders are passed on to the children. But in a nuclear family, it becomes difficult there, where both of them are earning members. So it becomes difficult. So sustainability, the solidarity is also spoiled in the family. It is the same way in a governmental system, there is an intragenerational gap where there is a vast gap between the previous and the present generation. So there is an intragenerational gap. And intergenerational gap is between two countries, two nations where they can have, or two states. So there is an intergenerational gap that happens between that where the solidarity is actually broken. So that should not happen. So that is what the sustainable development actually focuses on. So the principle is there should not be an intragenerational or intergenerational gap, and there should be a solidarity that should prevail. Then social justice. The third principle is social justice, where everybody should get equal justice. Justice is where it should be, it should not bother about the caste, the creed, the gender. No, everybody should get justice based on the rule of law. Equality should prevail. So that is also one of the principles. Then integration. Integration happens when people start following the government practices. The government understands the needs of the people, the preferences of the people. So there prevails the integration. So integration can happen based on effective management system. So that is again and important. And then of course you have your conservation of resources too. So manpower, the surrounding the various wildlife resources, so everything happens there. So there should be a proper integration of the ecosystem using local resources. Before going towards the foreign resources, the country should always aim to attain the local or utilize the local resources prevalent in one country. Local resources are your capital, the natural resources and the manpower resources. Utilize the local resources first before going to the other countries. Then management, these resources one should know, a country should know how to manage those resources. So these two are actually interrelated concepts. Then comes the participation. Participation is people centric. Development means it's people centric. Development means the integration of the government and the people. So it has to involve the citizen participation here, enable them to participate so that we progress towards good governance. Precaution and prevention. Precaution and prevention is also necessary. Where should we be precautious? In technology we should be precautious. In economy also, the economic conditions also, there should be a stability in the economy. If there is a downfall in the economy, the progress of the country actually hits. For example, we had the recent pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic was one which actually brought the entire system to a stagnancy for 2 years. Slowly the government started to revive and come out of that. Those 2 years was an actually a very difficult period for the citizen. So it is a duty of the government to protect the welfare of the people. So that is where they started to give the rice, the other provisions which are required, the essential provisions that are required for the people in the form of rice, dal, so all these things. So there should be a precaution. The government should always have a contingency fund with them to solve all these problems. And prevention. Prevention can happen through mitigation measures. This is a kind of a disaster. So this is a management of a disaster has to be taken care of. So disaster can happen, it is just not through accidents, but also through diseases, the pandemic, the epidemic. So all these can have a disastrous effect on the people. So these things should also be taken care of. So precaution and prevention methods. Principle of social responsibility, SR. SR means social responsibility. So every individual should have a social responsibility. Every industry should have the corporate social responsibility. When the industries are growing, who helps them to grow? It is the government. So they should actually have a principle where they have to get back to the welfare of the people. So it is a duty of the corporate sectors to bring about the welfare of its citizens. So provide the government schools with good infrastructural facilities, provide the government health institutions or healthcare systems with good infrastructure facilities. The corporate sector should come forth to volunteer in providing all these provisions. So that is a principle of social responsibility. Then comes the polluter pays principle. The polluter pays principle is where you can protect the environment. If a person, the manufacturer, when the manufacturer manufactures a particular product, he has to see to that he doesn't pollute the environment through his product. So if he does, he has to pay the penalty of it. So through that we can keep our environment also safe, we can also protect the people, and we can also move towards the sustainable development. So that is the polluter pays principle. Next is equity. Equity here is the wealth distribution, equitable distribution of wealth, inclusive participation. We should not leave any section of the people from taking decisions. All the people should be given the freedom to take the decisions. So there should be an equity. Any schemes, any policies should reach to every section of the population. So there should be an equity. And dynamism. Dynamism is, the goals are dynamic. Development is a dynamic process. Development is a goal-oriented process. So dynamism should exist. So development exists based on the dynamism, and that actually depends on the goals of the country. So dynamism is very important. So these are the major principles of sustainable development based on the prerequisites that have been given. These principles actually provide us with various goals which every nation has to fulfill. Now there are certain sustainability models. The sustainability models are required to fulfill the goals of the nation as such, irrespective of whichever country they are. They have to have a sustainable policy. So every country, it is mandatory for the country to provide a policy that can be sustained for a long period of time, for long run. So sustainable policy at all levels. Then community action. Community action is where, as I told you, it is a citizen participation. One should have a personal and organizational skills. Everybody in this country, every person, every individual is unique in their own way. So there should have, people should have an organizational skill. They should understand how to manage, how to control, how to coordinate and get things done for the sustenance. That is most important. And then reinvent systems. So you need to reinvent the systems using the technology. So how are we going to do this? So this is going to happen through certain sustainability models. We dealt with the theories, models for development administration. Now development administration is proceeding towards sustainable development. So again we focus on certain beautiful models of sustainability here. First is the 3-pillar model. Now 3-pillar model, I have given an acronym here which is called as SEE, S-E-E. C stands for, S stands for social, E for environment and E for economic. These three are interrelated, these three are integrated amidst each other. So that is your social, economic and environmental model. So here they focus, this particular 3-pillar model, it focuses on human resources and environmental resources. So can these two resources be independent? No. Human resources will have to depend on the environment has to depend on the human. So that is what is a social thing. Social talks about the human relations. E, environment, economic on the capital aspect. So these three are interdependent. Now what happens is there is a constraint, the time is a constraint. For these three to integrate, it takes a long time. So constraint of time matters here. And then they lack the consensus. If society gives a chance, economy does not give you a chance. If society and economy work together, environment does not give them a chance. So there is no consensus between these three systems. So that was what the 3-pillar model had a problem. So though they focused on the social, economic and environmental aspects, there was no consensus between the three. They said human capital is not important, the human values are not important, but they are important for a system to survive or for a system to sustain. So beyond the 3-pillar model, we had what is called as a capital stock model. This capital stock model was actually developed at the World Bank in 1994. Here again they focus, they have given a small I can say a formula which has been given, a sustainability capital. See, for a sustenance, capital is actually important. So, it comprises of 3 stocks, KSD. SD stands for sustainable development, K ENV, environment, K eco, economic, and K social. So, here you find in the diagram that for sustainability, social equity is necessary, economic viability is necessary, and economic protection is necessary. So, when you find sustainability and social equity together, so you find what is called as the equitability. And then when you find economic and sustainability, it is actually bearable, and then viable when all 3 merge together. So, that is how this particular model works. So, capital stock model is where you have these 3 together. These 3 capital actually are important for the country. Next comes the main prism of sustainable development. This is another model which was proposed by Keynes. So, we spoke about the social, environment, economic. Here he brings in another aspect called institutional dimension. Environmental dimension is the same, it depends on the systems, the internal and the external systems. Economic dimension is the artifact. Artifact is the construction, the infrastructure, the construction of buildings. So, everything has to be can happen only when there is a proper institution, proper agency for them to work under. So, economic dimension here he mentions as the artifact. Social dimension is your mind. The mind should be able to take the decisions. It has to accept the challenges and transform them to opportunities. So, that is a social dimension Keynes says. And the institutional dimension, when these 3 together go hand in hand, there comes the institutional dimension. Institutional is where your government relies upon, that is where your government functions. So, institutional dimension is equal to the functions of the government, which depends on the environmental, economic, and the social dimension. So, in other words, nature, artifact, and the mind. So, these 3 together are essential for the government. So, that is the main prism of sustainable development. The next is the prism model. So, similar to the 3-pillar model, here they have introduced, apart from the economic, environmental, social, you have the institutional capital. So, institutional capital is where the government also has to do or carry out the welfare measures for the people. So, institutional capital is very much important. So, if the people are providing the government with the investment, the government has to give it back. That is what is called as a maximization of the social value. This is one thing which we have through Simon, that is a rationality model which Herbert Simon says, where maximization of social value should be there. The gains of the people should be more than the cost of what the government incurs. If the cost is higher, then the benefits that are gained by the people will be of no use, it will be in vain. So, maximization happens only when the welfare measures are reached, the gains are more. So, that is why they say an institutional capital is necessary. Now, the government here can work for the welfare, it can go for the gains through the private association also. They can gel with the private agencies and reach out to the people. So, awareness is very important here. So, this is an example for the prism model. This is yet another beautiful model which is called as the egg sustainability and well-being. What do we see in an egg? An egg consists of the white, the yolk, and the eggshell. So, the yolk is actually being protected by the white, and the white is actually being protected by the eggshell. So, these 3 are the components here. In the same way, there should be an interconnectedness between these 3. So, anything can be inside, it can be either the society. The society has to be protected by the economy. the economy has to be protected by the environment. So, there should be an interconnectedness between the three. So, that is what is the egg of sustainability and well-being, which was developed by International Development Research Center in 1997. So, whatever comes apart from that, is not taken into consideration. So, these circles, these three together, the nested circles, are necessary for the sustainability. Then the concentric circle model. Concentric circle, it has got certain subsystems. Every system has got a subsystem. Like we have rules. When the rules are being implemented by the government, when the rules are being framed by the government, we have bylaws. These bylaws are applicable for the bureaucrats also. So, every system has got a subsystem to work with, so that we attain the sustainability at a larger level. So, the concentric circle model is more or less similar to the egg of sustainability model, but it actually encapsulates the subsystems within it. That is, we need certain subsystems for the process to function very smoothly. So, it has to be reached. Now, for a good example, policies are there, the government creates the policies, educational system is there, the new educational policy is there, it reaches to the students. Now, assessment, how the students are being assessed. So, the educational policy says students have to be assessed through examinations, which have to be conducted on the basis on quarterly basis. So, you have to conduct the examinations and evaluate and provide it. Then the assessment of the teachers. Teachers' assessment is also required. That these teachers who complete the teacher eligibility test can apply for this particular post, that is to take the secondary level. So, they have certain aspects, but how can they reach out to the people? This can be reached out through the media. So, media here acts as a subsystem for the system to reach to the citizen. So, that is what is the concentric circle model emphasizes. Then comes the two-tiered sustainability equilibria model, which was proposed by Lozano. So, he depicts, you have the two tiers, level 1 and the level 2. So, there is an interdependency at one point of time. It happens every time. We cannot have a diversion or deviation of these three. At one point of time, that is called as a benchmark, where these three together join together, and then there is an interdependency on all these three aspects, and that happens at a single point of time. And here time dimension is also included. In the first three pillar model, they said time is a constraint. Here, based on that, they say that here the time dimension here means we have a certain frame of work. We have to complete the task within a definite framework. So, it can be for a 5-year period or a 3-year period. If a project is taken by the government, say an infrastructure, provision of bridges, provision of good roads. So, what is the time limit for the completion of that task? So, that dimension should also be given. So, that is what is your two-tiered sustainability equilibria model says, because once the time is taken care of, the dimension of time is taken care of, then the sustenance actually falls in place. So, these are the sustainable development goals, the 17 goals. You can find first, no poverty. First SDG is no poverty. Second is zero hunger. Third, good health and well-being. Fourth, quality education. Fifth, gender equality. So, these 5 are very important. 6, clean water and sanitation. So, here comes your WASH. Water and sanitization and hygiene practices, where you have in clean water and sanitation. The next is affordable and clean energy. So, here you have solar energy, the thermal energy, water energy, wind energy. So, all these comes under this particular aspect. decent work and economic growth. So, a person should have good employment. So, here today you have what is called as a skill development, where the government focuses on developing the skills of the students, of the youth today. So, everybody feels they are self-reliant, they are confident. So, a decent work is provided and it leads to the economic growth. The ninth one is industry, innovation and infrastructure. Today is a time where innovative practices are happening. People come up with new inventions to provide a sustenance for the economy as such. So, industry, innovation and infrastructure is the ninth sustainable goal. 10th is reduce inequality. So, 5th goal is gender equality, the 10th one is a reduced inequality. So, gender equality is where you need to take care of the freedom of women, the empowerment of women. The empowerment of women has to be taken care of in this case. So, that is a gender equality. Then you have the reduced inequalities. This comes with the vulnerable sections of the society. So, treat everybody at par. So, there is reduced inequality. 11th is sustainable cities and communities. Today you have what is called as the terrace gardening. Many places are being taken care of. We have a lot of agricultural lands, but then agricultural lands are being utilized by the real estate. So, you have a boom in the real estate today, yet we need to preserve the environment as such. So, for the sustainability, we move ahead with the terrace gardening, the solar energy. So, the government gives subsidies to people who encourage this kind of a mission. Then 12th is a responsible consumption and production. So, consumption and production should actually be in a equilibrium. So, what you produce, there should not be wastage, and what you consume, that should actually go hand in hand. More number of production is actually a waste for our country, though certain things can be exported, but the equilibrium relies on the responsible consumption and production. Then we have the 13th goal, which is the climate action. Climate changes are happening today. So, adaptability, mitigation is very important. There are certain marshlands, wetlands. So, the conservation of such marshlands and wetlands are very much essential. So, there comes your adaptation techniques, because there are many people who are living in and around that particular place. So, the people should also be given the adaptability role. And then what are the mitigation strategies? Well, what kind of plans or what kind of methods can be utilized here for the mitigation strategies to protect the climatic conditions. Then 14th is life below water, that is the sea. The sea has to be protected to more of salt, more of sand, illegal sand mining happens. So, it can affect the it can affect the system of the species in living in water. 15th is life on land, preserve the environment, the trees, the birds, the animals, so everything has to be there. 16th is peace, justice and strong institution. So, there should be a peace amidst all the nations, all the states, for them to have a strong institution or a strong justice, and then partnership for the goals. So, there should be a partnership between all the nations to achieve the goals of sustainability. So, these are the 17 sustainable goals which are required for every nation in our country. How can this be strengthened? How can the sustainability development goals be strengthened through the national and local capacities? So, steps that are taken, first, as we know, it is decentralization and then the localization. SDG has to reach out to the people. The authority has to be delegated. There should be a decentralization of authority. So, the steps start from the local government. So, one, information. The local government should pass on the information to its people. Two, it is the assessment of performance. Once that has been passed, how the schemes reach out, how the people feel about those schemes or policies, that has to be assessed. So, the performance has to be assessed. There should be a transparency, accountability. So, the local government, if the people find that particular scheme to be very difficult or not very advantageous, and they communicate to the local government, they should be ready to help them. They should be transparent in the working system also. Only then there can be an integrated development in our country. So, this is also important for the for the sustainable development. Partnership, that is again the partnership within agencies and institutions. Cooperation. Cooperation is between the local government, the state government. So, these two should have a good cooperation, and the state government should have a good cooperation with the union government. So, when these three are fulfilled, then the goals are actually achieved. So, the capacity for sustainable development also is also increases when you strengthen the national and the local, and citizen encouragement and corporate social responsibility. So, that is also important. And integrated local governance. Integrated local governance within the local government, within the local institutions itself, there should be an integration between the Panchayat Raj, the wards, the councillors, the municipalities, the chairman. So, all these people, the mayor, so all these should have an integrated governance. So, integrated local governance is also important. So, once we strengthen all these at the national and the local capacities, we are halfway through attaining the sustainability. So, this sustainability can have a major impact in the development. However, there are also challenges. Like we say, a coin has two sides, one a good side, another one not a good side, I would not say, but then as a coin has two sides, we have the benefits as well as the challenges. So, challenges is in governance. We speak a lot, but when it comes to action, we fail to go ahead with that. So, governance should reach out to good governance, where technology is required, where importance of manpower has to be realized. So, governance, that should not be a lacuna here. So, governance has to be upgraded. 2, migration. People start moving from one state to another. That is because of the population explosion. There is a density of population. All the states do not have the same kind of population. The density of the population actually varies from state to state. People move to various other states for employment. So, what happens? One particular state has got a more number of people there when a survey is conducted. So, for educational facilities, for employmental opportunities, so people start migrating. So, that is one of the major challenges, because there comes your poverty. It is very difficult for the state government itself to feed all the people there. So, there should be an understanding or cooperation between two states to help each other in a different way. 3 is unequal economic growth. Economic growth should be constant, be it one nation, a state. So, if one state shows a good economic growth and the other state does not show a good economic growth, there comes the deficiency of sustainability. So, there should not be an unequal economic growth. What is required? One state may be good in tourism. So, one state may be good in the medical tourism, one state can be good in industrial systems where investment can happen. So, the state has to focus on the advantages or the positive aspects of themselves for them to increase their growth. So, unequal economic growth should not be prevalent. Lack of integration of SDGs in the environment sector. Yes, where does it start from? Lack of SDG is prevalent. We think about zero hunger, we think about zero poverty, we think about preserving or conserving the environment, but ultimately everything relies on the responsibility and the responsiveness of the citizens. Citizens are you and I. So, we should be responsible to have an integration to protect the environment sector. So, there is a lack of integration to fulfill this SDG. Fifth one is defining indicators. We do not have certain indicators. We think about the social dimension, the political dimension, the cultural dimension, but what is a major indicator? We do not prioritize certain indicators which can help us to sustain in the future. So, proper indicators have to be defined for facing a good development or good progress in the country. Sixth one is SDG funding. SDG funding is very poor. Goals are given, but no funding happens. Funding has to come from, because it is just not about India, it is just not about the United States of America, or it is just not about the European countries. It is also about countries like Africa, where they actually remain under poverty. The internet facilities, the technological facilities are too costly in African nations. Blessed are we, where we have this technology upgradation happening, and we are getting systems at free of cost at times and at our doorstep. But in countries like Africa, it is actually very expensive. So, funding has to take place. Funding, the nations should also come forth. If they are member nations, they have to sit together and work on measures on how to protect or help the other nation to come out of their poverty and unemployment and other health facilities. So, SDG funding is very poor. So, actions are not taken much, though we have the goals. Seventh is monitoring and ownership. Monitoring as ownership is also very essential. It is just not enough when decision making is done. You need to evaluate, you need to analyze. Implementation is not the last resort, but then you need to have a proper analysis whether the work has been done. It has to be scrutinized. Who are the ones who are going to scrutinize? It is a bureaucrat. The bureaucrat at the higher level and the field level. There is always a gap between the bureaucrats at the higher level and the bureaucrats at the field level. They do not get along very well because of their rank, because of their position classification and etc. But then ultimately we should think about the vision of the country, the progress of the country, the economic development of the country, the sustainability of our country is very important. So, monitoring is very important. So is ownership. Ownership is a sense of belonging. Every individual should have a sense of belonging. Eighth one is measuring progress. It's again the evaluation of policies. So, policy evaluation has to be there. And the last ninth challenge is the challenge of information technology. So, we have moved from information technology, we have moved towards information and communication technology. So, it is just not about gathering information, but it is also about how we communicate that information to the people. So, that is also important. So, there is a challenge prevalent there of information technology. So, ICT today plays a major role. So, these are the major challenges which can actually govern or which can actually stop the development, which can actually stop the sustenance of the society. Finally, coming to the conclusion, public administration features more prominently in the SDGs than it did in the MDGs. So, public administration as such is the link between the public, that is the government, and the people. So, that is very important. That has it features more prominently in the SDGs, because the goals are the requisites of the government to be fulfilled based on the needs and preferences of the people. So, public administration has got a prominent role, it plays a prominent role in the achievement of SDGs. The ultimate attainment of SDGs is highly dependent on the governance systems also. So, the public governance system is where we have we need to focus on the administration, strengthening the capacity, strengthening the working capacity or the internal capacity is very important. So, SDG is highly dependent on the public governance system. Now, there are three major roles of the public administration in sustainable development. We have something called as a standalone development objectives. It should not be a standalone development objective. The objective should be an integrated development objective. A single person with a very populous country is it is very difficult to manage in such a way. So, it has to be an integrated system where we bring in the social, the economic, the political, all of them should be integrated together to achieve the sustainable development goals. Policy instruments of the public administration should always be re-evaluated. Re-evaluation does not happen. We have the policies and the schemes, but then re-evaluation does not happen. So, SDGs are embedded and framed intrinsically in the public governance system. So, SDGs are prevalent, but how we are going to fulfill has no boundaries. We do not have any action plan. We need to have an action plan to bring in the sustainable development goals to the reach of the people. So, these are the major roles of public administration in sustainable development. So, to have a recap, we did on the various kinds of what is the need for sustainable development, what is sustainable development, how it helps us in development administration, what are the prerequisites of sustainable development, what are the propositions of sustainable development, and based on which how the goals can be achieved, and what are the different kinds of models, the 3-pillar model, the eccentric model, the concentric circle model. So, we had various models which discussed about how the sustainability can be attained, and then we discussed on the various 17 goals of sustainable development and what are the roles of the local government, the union government and the state government in strengthening their capacities to attain the sustainable development. Finally, to conclude, we also brought in the importance of public administration for the achievement or attainment of sustainable development goals. Thank you.